Interesting wall design. Wonder if it's new or old. Okay, this building I'm standing in, before I go into the castle proper, was an L-shaped stable, or umaya, capable of keeping 21 horses for the Lord constantly standing by and hitched. It was apparently a small tatami room for whatever the Lord chose to do in there. Another decorative manhole cover, although not painted. Here we get the inside look at the stables. And this is the only such stable that exists from the Edo period, 1860s, 1850s. This is interesting. There's some kind of a drainage hole. The fittings here that the horse could be attached to. Probably that for holding tack. Where walking may be covering little troughs that were used for cleaning it out and washing it and draining it. Notice this is well kept, cleaned in the Japanese way in areas you'd never even see. Here a well for the horses and their maintenance. There again, perhaps another drainage area, a second well. It's covered probably for our convenience. If that horse is reflective of the true dimensions of their horses, it was a much stockier and lower built horse. Bigger head and mouth, of course. But I don't know if that's realistic or not. 15th century, the castle was a center for martial arts training and had many of the expert teachers of the realm here, and horsemanship. Military horsemanship, of course, was, as it points out, no exception to that training. I've seen a Japanese moat, or any moat, that had a boat transportation system set up in it. That we'll be entering in a moment was built in about 1603. Was the construction began by the son of the man who was awarded this area because of his defeat of another general and his distinguishment in the War of Sekikagara, which is one of the great, in 1600, one of the great Gettysburg equivalents of Japan history. And it suggests that these stone walls, Nobori Ishigaki, were built in 5 places nationwide, Hikone Castle being one such place. And these ovals may suggest points here where the original wall exists, so hopefully that'll be pointed out. Bamboo quiver. Ah, that's what those girls were carrying, a bow. I wonder how powerful these bows were. What is probably magnificent about these, and I can't totally appreciate it, is the precision with which they're made, not to mention the quality of the steel. I wonder if that is a design element or an element of the process. And is the tip different? It looks like it is. Like it's brass or something. They're masks that were used during the narrow ceremonies or stage productions. And my guess is that these were so formalized a production, as they still are, that each of these would have represented a very iconic character known to the Japanese then and now for various specific attributes. Again, each of these would be instantly recognizable, probably to us, any face that resembled the Witch and the Wizard of Oz. These would have been costumes, again, each probably very iconically recognizable. Notice the complete differences between some of them. And yet the subtlety of difference. Color, of course, is one, but there. Over the course of the 250 years, I think it was, that the Lee family controlled the castle, they had collected an incredible number of artifacts and of the highest quality utensils for tea and other things, and that's what we're seeing in this museum. And again, notice the restraint, just a few items in these large cases, as opposed to most museums, which would be totally dominated by a collection of items. This would have been a jar for holding tea leaves, a flower vase. It was an incense burner. I don't know whether you put sand in it and then stuck the burning incense sticks in. Again, it looks very simplistic, almost primitive in its design. Everything about it, for that matter. And yet the date is the 1600s, 17th century. The tea caddy, whatever that means. This is a tea ceremony utensil that looks like three people holding hands. These are kettle hangers. And they're a kettle. Wow. And those are tongs, not chopsticks, although they look like it. They're apparently iron. It's of the 18th century. It's a fresh water jar. This is a simple painting of bird and flowers. A room for experiencing tea ceremonies when they're given. This is a stem cup, whatever that is. I think that defines the design of the cup rather than its use. But this has on it apparently a motif of the 8 immortals. It's interesting to see that much detail inside the cup, which ironically you do look at when you drink. And this is actually a fire container. Surprising that it's still in existence. Look at the nice landscape with some buildings, I guess. Flower container, extremely subtle design inside that. Look at that. Very subtle. It's a plate with a herd boy motif. Little boy on top playing a flute. Another boy, perhaps, directing the animal. Just an example of what the insides of the rooms look like now. I would have thought that these would have been painted, and they may have been. Or they may simply have looked better when they were new. And then scrolls, like we saw of the flower and the bird, would be hung. Notice the simple beauty of those two fragile plants surrounded by moss like an island in the sea in itself. Again, the restraint here. Here, the tea ceremony. What a lovely place to do it in, eh? And there, that pit in the center, perhaps to hold a fire pot. The side room perhaps would hold the various utensils of the persons responsible for the ceremony. Again, the sense of openness that these sliding panels are capable of creating. My brain wants to interpret some of these wide open panels as mirrors. It's not used to seeing rooms divided this way. Look at how the beach is terraced down. If these panels, these bright ones with the mesh design, were normal. And then when you come around the corner and look out another panel, slightly different view, you can imagine someone who lived in these premises, sometimes sitting here and contemplating as they kneel down these little trees and bushes, and developing some much more profound and deeper sense of aesthetic or whatever than I'm getting. For example, would such a man lament the loss of those branches there of that tree, or the stem of that tree, considering and remembering what went on when they still existed in his life. A little garden, a pool, would be walking stones. Obviously that's new, but it might have been something similar to that at one time. Again, this lovely open sensation that you have and the views that you have. There's stairs here, so there's an upper story also. This is a musical instrument named rain. How it's played, what it sounds like, I don't know. It's called a bamboo mouth organ. Here another in its carrying case. Those must be the reeds that you play it with. Huh. And these are 18th century flutes. They're carrying cases. Here it suggests the tradition of gagaku court music as a long distinguished as a form of entertainment associated with the Japanese imperial court. And this collection from 1794 to 1850 of the 12th Lord of the Lee family, regarded as one of the best in Japan, both in quality and quantity. Imagine this building ringing with the sound of these instruments on occasion. Just the cases of lacquer painted alone are beautiful. A 4-stringed lute named Biwa. That must be the pick that was used. A 13-stringed zither. Imagine tuning that. Notice how the strings are so decoratively and carefully collected at the top. I wonder if you can go online, I'm sure you can, and listen to the sound of these on YouTube. This, I'm not sure if it's another kind of instrument or something to do with the device we looked at. It suggests that it's a different instrument. These are ornate traveling chests for clothes. If you can imagine boxes like this being carried over the Kiso Nakasendo Road, maybe hundreds of them for the Lord that was at that point in time traveling. This is a picnic set, which tells me a couple of things. One, they're gorgeous, and notice that's a little table for eating off of, as are both of these. And it probably all fits in that same container, which appears to have a little handle that would have been carried by one of your attendants. But it also says that these people did take advantage of some of the beautiful spots in their gardens to sit and contemplate and have something to eat. And you can imagine them going even farther afield. This is an inkstone case. As we can see, there's the inkstone used by the calligraphers and perhaps other painters. Elegant pastimes, various ways were devised in Japan to relieve the monotony of everyday life, parentheses by the wealthy who had nothing else to do, as seen in these decorative elements of small objects. In these works we find the traditional Japanese aesthetic sensibility. Now these are the kind of scrolls that would be painted with perhaps the poems of famous people like Basho on it. And then these would be hung on the walls in rooms. And they might be changed frequently or whenever the occupant wanted a change of view, same as we might change pictures, although in my house, you put it someplace, it tends to stay for the next 20 years. And in this room, we'll see some of the 35,000 historical documents and classic books passed down in the Lee family, revealing the history of this family and its culture for 250 years. No difference between these and the various paintings or Tom Mangelsson photographs that we would hang in our homes. Works of arts these large room separating panels represent. We've seen them painted on the walls before. It's a 17th century painting. I'm going to look at this one at sections. I'll do a Ken Burns on these. An overseer, men in the fields. Some workmen repairing some cement work. Water from the stream. Ladies washing clothes, maybe? Look how they pull up their kimonos to keep them from getting wet. No, they're planting rice, excuse me. Notice that bent over position. Though it's difficult to see, I think what these men are doing is they're pumping water or moving water from that upper portion to that lower portion by using a treadmill of some sort. And then this device here, you can see the tumbling water. Yeah, those are probably bamboo slats or even cups. Again, you can get an idea of many things. The design of the plow, how it was attached, the harnessing, even the facial hair, and the little hat. And these men are harvesting some kind of grain. Maybe it's the rice, I don't know. Hauling the grain to a place where it'll be processed. And here is that place. Beating it with those whips things, of sticks probably, to separate the wheat from the chaff. And then this man harvesting something out of the tree. With that little pointy stick, or Y-shaped stick up in the air, on racks, perhaps to dry. And this looks like a well pump, unless it's somehow a grinding wheel of some sort. Can't be sure. But it does look like one of those round stones, with maybe a stone underneath it and a wider stone. Look at the stuff on the ground. That may be some of the wheat that falls loose. These people watching some chickens, who they may have fed some of the grain to. Can't tell what they're hauling there. It may be grain, it may be something for repair. This may be for storage or repair, I don't know.